Hello and welcome to Todd Talk, where insight meets inspiration. I'm your host, Todd Hiller, and I'm an author, speaker, and longtime community leader, here to guide you on a journey towards fulfillment and balance. In every episode, we'll explore ways to fill life's emptiness, helping you uncover practical tools to create harmony, purpose, and happiness. Whether it's thriving in your career, nurturing personal growth, or simply finding joy in the everyday, Todd Talk is your space for real conversations and actionable advice. So let's thrive together, personally, professionally, and beyond. This is Todd Talk, and I'm thrilled to have you here.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Todd Talk. In this episode, we're going to talk about when you don't know what's next for you. And so the previous episode to this was about the seasons of your life and embracing the changing of seasons and kind of letting yourself learn what each season is about. But we're going to follow up that episode with this one that says, what do you do when you don't know what's next? Because the last episode talked about those different seasons, and it was fantastic to walk through that and think through that as a group and kind of, really walk through the ideas and the changes that we experience as people, both physically and emotionally and mentally, and all those things that are tied to not only the physical seasons of the weather, but also the seasons of our life and the changes we undergo. So today I want to talk about what do we do in the middle ground, in those waiting room seasons. How do we trust what's going on when there's no clear roadmap? Because sometimes the possibility of the season coming to an end is looming. It's right there in front of us, but we don't know what's next. But we do know this season is coming to a close. And that could be kind of scary. We kind of crave certainty as people. So how do we stay open to the possibility of things while we're craving that certainty and understanding like, hey, we want to know right now what we don't know because we need to know it right now, right? But it's okay to not know because confusion is part of creation. The beginning always has to be bad and muddy, and you kind of have to fumble through it to kind of get your sea legs and get your feet underneath you and figure out where you're going to go and how you're going to get there. So I want to encourage you to embrace curiosity. Don't try to force the clarity. Be curious about it. Ask questions. Kind of look introspectively and say, all right, well, this season has ended. Ask yourself what that season taught you, and then ask yourself what the next season of your life might be. It's okay to take a guess. It's okay to be curious. It's okay to say, maybe this is where I'm headed. It's okay if you're wrong. Don't worry about failing if you're trying to guess what season is next. We don't always get it right. But be curious about it and instead of trying to force the clarity to come when it's not ready to come yet. Because growth often happens in the unknown, not in the plan, right? I'm going to guess that there are a boatload of people listening, and I know I've got my hand held high that a lot of times I have grown as a person and learned so much when I had to walk through and deal with something unknown that came up out of the blue rather than when I had a plan. Because all great plans, when put into action, they don't always go correctly, right? I mean, it'd be great if every time we made a plan, it executed and worked out perfectly, but we all know that's not the case. We all know that sometimes things go sideways and hell comes to breakfast and things don't work out the way we wanted them to, but that's okay. When that unknown pops up, we can grow a lot as people because it's always a learning experience. So use that time to listen. Use it to, kind of recalibrate and prepare for what's coming next. And if you're thinking the actual seasons of the world and of the earth, think about it like tilling the soil before you plant something. You have to get something ready before you plant, right? You either have to dig a hole and put something in it, or if the ground has been hard and frozen all winter, you have to till it and loosen it up and kind of turn it over and get it ready to put something in the ground and let it be planted to give it the opportunity to grow. And I see this a lot in my memories of the fire service, thinking about different calls I've been on. Not every call has a clear plan. As a matter of fact, usually when bigger calls, they have a plan and the plan goes sideways and you have to improvise, adapt, and overcome. Those are three big words in the fire service: improvise, adapt, and overcome, because that's what we are constantly doing. Whether it's with manpower on or off the job, on or off the scene, or it's manpower or a situation that arises out of the blue on the scene, we always have to worry about those three things and always have to be ready to do those three things. Sometimes the fire calls or the emergency calls are just triage and instinct. That's what you're working with. That's what you're running forward with. You don't get to say, hey, let's make a plan. Because let's be serious. When the bell goes off, the time to plan is over. It's time to jump in the fire truck and drive to the scene. And you might have a few minutes to get there, and you can make a little bit of a plan in your head. But when you get out of the fire truck or you get out of the car, you get out of the ambulance or whatever it is, and you realize that what you were thinking in your head of doing, you can't do because of X, Y, and Z circumstances, you have to kind of plan on the fly and figure it out as you go. And our seasons of our life are much the same. We can plan all we want, but when we don't have the perfect outcome of the plan. The first step doesn't go the way we wanted it to. Sometimes there is no first step. Sometimes we miss a step and fall flat on our face and have to pick ourselves back up and start again. But when that happens, it doesn't mean we give up. It means that we run on triage and instinct. You figure out what the problem was in your life. You figure out what happened in the season you're in. You figure out what the middle ground looks like, even if the waters are muddy. And then you go on your instinct and you do what you think is best and trust your gut and walk forward. And the hard part sometimes is we as people, especially me, sometimes I overthink things. Sometimes I overplan things. You know, probably there's a good friend of mine out there listening thinking like, yo, overthinkers, you wrote the book on it, Todd, you know. So I get that. But we as people, sometimes we can't help but do that. So take a step back and just say, you know what, I'm going to go on my instinct and on my gut, and I'm going to worry about what happens after it happens, and then I will improvise, adapt, and overcome if need be as I keep walking forward. You know, and I can use this metaphor in lots of walks of my life. Firefighting, also with farming and fatherhood. You know, when you're farming, I have a TikTok video of this from a long, long time ago about corn. I remember talking to my dad and my grandfather years ago about leaving things be. You know, let it alone and leave it be. You know, and my dad and my grandfather both said, listen, you don't pull seeds up to check if they're growing, because then it would kill the plant. You know, when corn gets to be 3 inches high, you don't dig it up and look at it and say, oh, yep, it's really a plant. Now hurry up and stuff it back in the ground and hope it stays alive. You kind of just trust that they're going to grow. And then when they sprout and they break the top of the soil, you say, yes, they're growing, and then you nurture them and you do your best you can to get them moving forward. But you can't dig them up in the middle of their process and check. You have to trust and let them do their thing and let them grow. And fatherhood, oh man, parenting, if you're a parent listening right now, you know that when they sent you home from the hospital with your first kid or any of your kids, they should have given you a helmet and an extra seatbelt and said, buckled up, it's going to be a wild ride, you know, because even if you have great kids, there's so many unknowns sometimes, and kids go through transitions where you don't know who they are. You don't know who they're going to be. You don't know who they want to hang out with. You don't know what they need from you, and everything in between. And the really tricky thing is, as kids grow, you don't know who they're becoming yet, but you show up for them as a parent. You be the best parent you can be. You be present for them. You give them the tools they need, and then you watch them grow into what you have nurtured. And when you nurture them well enough, they grow into great things. And even if they stumble along the way, and even if they trip up and they make mistakes, everybody screws up and makes mistakes. But think of all those things as they pertain to you, too, because growth, like I said, happens in the unknown, not in your plan. You can make the best plan for your kids, the best plan for a fire call, the best plan for farming, and everything could go awry in any three of those things, just like it can in your everyday life. And then you have to kind of figure out what to do from there. You know, as we talk through this, too, one of the things that I can kind of that resonates with me and in my brain about a time when I didn't know what was coming next was, well, when I got back from Rhode Island, after college, I worked in Rhode Island for a year, and once I got back from working there and got home to the farm, I was standing out one day out in front of the barn, and I was looking out across the hayfield, and I had no idea what came next. My parents had separated, and my dad was living at the farm, and I didn't know if he wanted to get new cows and keep going. I didn't know if he wanted to say, I don't want to do this anymore. It's a lot of work. It's too much. I'm moving. I'm going to France. Or like, I didn't know, you know, there was so much unknown. And I stood there and I realized that I don't know what comes next. But what I did know, that in my heart and in my gut, when I thought about not doing what my family had raised me doing, not raising animals and not making hay and not making maple syrup and not having that space and not having that hayfield to look over, when I thought about the not doing, man, my gut and my heart were not happy. You know, they just kind of sunk. So from that unknown, I got the unknown, right? Got that unknown feeling. We talked about that before. I trusted my instinct, kind of triage and instinct, and move forward. And I said, well, if I know that I'll hate it if I'm not doing it, well, heck, we might as well go ahead and try doing it and then see how we do and see where it goes from there. And that story is about me specifically and about the farm. But guys, if you're listening, please know this can relate to you in so many ways. Maybe you've just left a job. Maybe your kids have just grown up and left the nest. Maybe a dream for you has changed or ended. Or maybe you're just tired. And maybe you're just wondering, what on earth do I do now? If any of that resonates with you, that's okay. It's okay to not know. You know, and we're on the heels here of me just re-releasing my novel Fire and Ivy and my children's book The Adventures of Froggy and Little Bear, and me currently working on a sequel to my novel Fire and Ivy. And you know, sometimes I sit there and I look and I realize that there's a moment between chapters where all the pages feel blank. where I sit down to write and I'm like, okay, this just happened in the story. I want this to happen next, but it feels just blank and empty. And I don't know what to do, and I don't know what to write. I don't know how to move forward. And that is what this episode is about. It is how to help you stand in the middle of that blank space and not lose heart and not lose hope. Because there is no sense in giving up on yourself. You are the best person in the world to bet on. You are a sure bet and a winner every single time because you control the odds and you control the outcome. You know how hard you can work at something that you believe in and that you're dreaming of, and you get to go out there and work at it because it's you. You don't have to rely on someone else chasing their own dream and bet on that. You get to bet on yourself. It's a sure thing. It's a winner. So bet on yourself and believe in yourself. And the other thing about this middle that we're talking about and this kind of unknown, this muddy water, foggy place, it's not a failure. It's not laziness. It's not the end. Remember, it's a pause. It's a place where you kind of stand and look out and say, okay, now what do I do next? And if you don't know what season is coming next, that's okay. You can at least kind of look to the horizon or look at what's looming or what's in your heart, in your soul, in your gut, in your spirit, wherever you want to say it comes from, and look at that and figure out how you want to transition and how you want to kind of push the fog away or walk down the hallway between the two doors or whatever you want to call it, whatever metaphor or analogy you want to use or see in your mind's eye, that's fine. But think about that and focus, instead of trying to figure out the clarity and knowing exactly what will happen in the next season, try to just make sure you can really pin down what you're feeling in your heart and what you think you want to do and what you think you want to pursue. Understand and know and ask yourself why you want to do it, why you want to pursue it. Forget whether or not it's difficult or not. Everything in life is difficult if you hash it out the right way or the wrong way, okay? So think about that. Do I want to walk forward in this part of my life? If the answer is yes, then go ahead and start asking yourself some questions. Okay, I don't know what the next season looks like, but what does it look like to move from where I am to where I want to be? And that's the really golden thing to think about. Don't plan the future. You can't do that sometimes. The plan doesn't work. You can't have your entire life mapped out, from start to finish. But what you can do is you can look and you can say, okay, how do I get from where I'm leaving right now, the end of this season, how do I transition into a place I want to be in the next season of my life? And if you get to a place where you want to be and you are happy with the type of person you are and the way you are feeling, the actual season that shows up doesn't matter. Because if you're happy and fulfilled and balanced and ready to take on the world and walk through your day feeling good about yourself and the decisions you've made, then it doesn't necessarily matter what the next season is. It just matters that you know you're ready to walk through it and to be in it. And on that note, I want to remind you to be curious, not critical. I have said this, Lord knows how many times in all these podcasts, but we are our own harshest critics. We cut ourselves no slack. We are so hard on ourselves. So don't be critical on yourself. Get curious. Ask yourself, sometimes you say, oh God, what am I doing with my life? You sit on your bed at night and you think, oh man, what am I even doing? Where am I even going? This is useless. I'm a failure. Get those ideas right out of your head. And instead, replace them all with what's stirring in me right now? What do I feel bubbling up from my gut or from my stomach or from my heart? What am I being pushed to do? And whether you want to say it comes from your heart, your soul, God, your spirit, the things that make you, your principles, your internal values, I don't care where you say it comes from. But I want you to think about that. What do you feel stirring in you? Which direction do you feel yourself being pushed or being guided or walking? And when you know that, and because I think a lot of us, we don't think about this. We don't think, where do I want to see myself in the future? What do I want to do? What do I want this next season to look like? Because even if the seasons are unknown, we still get to pick what we're going to do. We still get to choose our own actions, right? That's the beautiful thing about being people with free will. We get to choose what we're going to do next. So know that about yourself and ask yourself those hard questions. And some people have said to me before when I've had this conversation with people, whether it was on social media or after an event that I spoke at, whatever it was, people say, Todd, I don't know what to do. I don't know what I want the next season of my life to look like. I don't know what next step to take. The question I ask them to always ask themselves, 2 questions. Well, 3 questions. How about that? I just added one as my brain was working, right? So I want you to ask yourself, what do you miss? What is quietly calling you to get back to it? And if you can't think of those, even if you can't think of those two things, I want you to ask yourself, what's no longer working? Because I promise, we as people, we can always find the negative. Doesn't matter what walk of life you are. Doesn't matter your socioeconomic status, your age, your gender, your style, your hair color, your favorite music. I don't care what it is. we as people will always have the ability to find the negative and say, this doesn't work anymore. But you have to be honest with yourself. You can't lie. You can't lie and say, well, this is kind of working and it's going to work better soon because I really like this thing and I don't want to let it go. Be brutally honest with yourself. If it's time to cut the cord, cut the cord. If it doesn't work anymore, it's time to let it go and move on. It doesn't mean you can never return to it. It just means it's time to move forward and it doesn't work anymore. So that's the really hard question to ask yourself. If you can't figure out what you want to do next, you can't figure out what's calling you, you can't figure out what you miss, ask yourself what doesn't work anymore and start there. Because once you figure out what doesn't work anymore, I promise you will start making a bigger list of things that don't work, and that will guide you right to the door of the things that do work. And instead of say, well, man, I know for a fact this right now is not working anymore. But you know what would be great? If I could do X instead of Y. And you'll get there. I promise you'll get there. And when it comes to the next thing, please also remember, they don't have to be grandiose with big fireworks and parades. You can do the next small thing right. It doesn't need to be some huge jump that has to go perfectly, right? When the big direction feels too far off, you do the little thing. You call a friend you haven't talked to in a while. You finish that one thing on your to-do list that's been nagging at you for a while. You get quiet and you listen to the voice in your head to figure out what's calling you quietly because you haven't been quiet very often lately to give yourself the chance to listen. And those are the things you do. Look, and I know you've seen this somewhere before on a poster or a motivational meme or wherever it is, but you don't have to see the whole path. You just have to see enough light or have enough light to take the next step. And that step can lead to another and another and another. And that's how you get where you want to go. And, I talked about the farm story. I looked out and I said I was looking at the hayfield and I kind of said I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I felt super lost. But looking back now, I realized that I wasn't lost. I was becoming the person I was going to be in the next season of my life. I was no longer going to be Todd Hiller, college kid / college graduate. I was going to be Todd Hiller, farm manager / whatever else was going on in my life for the farm where my dad lives that he and I own together. Like that's what I was becoming. But in the moment, I felt lost. I felt like I had no idea what was on the horizon, no idea what was going to happen. But looking back, it's such a beautiful thing to realize I was not lost. I was simply becoming the person I needed to be and the person I was meant to be during that next season of my life, even though I didn't know what that season was going to be or was going to look like. And listen, if you feel adrift or unmotivated, that's okay too. That will happen. It's human nature sometimes to feel like I don't know what to do. I don't have any motivation. I don't know what's calling me. I don't know what's going right. I don't know what's going wrong. I don't know what to do, Todd. I don't know. I just don't know. Hear me. Take a deep breath and hear me when I tell you this. It is perfectly okay. You are not broken. You are just between. Okay? You are not broken. You are just between. You're between seasons. You're between things. You're between organizations. You're between relationships, between jobs, between whatever it is. You're not broken just because you're in between things. The perennials we put in the ground, if you're someone who loves to grow things, every winter we don't think they're a failure because the blooms die off and everything dies back or gets cut to ground level. We know that they're going to quietly rest under the surface of the ground, and then next spring they're going to come back bigger and better than ever. So do the same with yourself. When you're in those times of growth and you're in those quiet times of wondering and kind of working through what's going to come next, and you're building yourself up and you're getting ready to become something or become the next thing in your life and start the next season of your life, don't think that you're broken. Trust the process. Know that when spring shows up and that next season of your life shows up, you have the chance to bloom. You can do it. You'll get to it. You don't have to feel like you're broken. Just remember that you're between, and that's perfectly okay. And not knowing, I struggle with this a lot, or used to struggle with this a lot, because I like knowing. I need to know, right? I don't like doing something I'm not perfect at, and I don't like knowing every single thing about the things I'm supposed to be doing. But what not knowing has taught me is patience, humility. It's taught me to trust people and also trust the process. It's taught me how to listen better. It's taught me how to recalibrate and kind of figure out which way my compass is pointing and where I should get walking. And that is a great thing to do. So don't worry if you don't know. Okay? Use it for times to uncover and embrace those little things. Because uncertainty is where your intuition grows legs. Okay? It's where you remember what really matters. Because when you don't know what's coming next, you fall back and rely on the things you know work. And you rely on and fall back on the things you know make you happy and make you feel strong and grounded and important and balanced and fulfilled. when you know what matters and you know what's going on in your life and how you can feel those things, you'll remember them even if you don't know what's coming on the horizon. You'll remember all those things from the last or the previous season of your life. And as we close today, my friends, here's what I want you to do. I want you to reflect on this. I want you to think, ask yourself, what season do I think I just left behind? What season of me closed? Was it a season of growth? Was it a season of learning? Was it a season of change? What season did I just leave behind? And then also ask yourself, what feels like it's falling away? And not in a bad way. What feels like it's dropping, like falling leaves in the fall, or like snow that's melting to make way for spring flowers to bloom? What do you feel like is slowly shrinking away? And then when you think about that, think about what you think can bloom in the future. Think about what things are leaving and what they are making room for as they fade away or go away. Also ask yourself what little nudges you have ignored, what little things, think back, say, what little things have I ignored? Oh, remember this, and this happened? Boy, I guess I should have taken that as a sign to do X, okay? And then take all those things and think about where your feet might want to walk next. And think about this, especially if fear weren't leading the way. Because sometimes, let's face it, we as people worry so much about the unknown and we fear the unknown. So if fear was not a factor, if you were not afraid, if you knew everything was going to go correct and everything was going to go swimmingly, right? Don't worry about what I said 5 minutes ago, that the plan always fails. Ignore me for a second on that point. But if fear wasn't leading the way and you knew it was going to be okay, what would you do? Where would you go? What would you pursue? And then take that and put it in your heart and take that next step forward. Whatever you do, never stop believing in yourself. I believe in you, and give yourself permission to believe in yourself and keep walking forward. As always, my friends, thank you so much for listening. If someone you know thinks you think this message would resonate with them or help them, please share it with them. Thank you so much for your support, for your listening, for your downloads, your likes, and your subscriptions. I cannot tell you how much it means to me. Thank you very much. Have a fantastic day, and I hope you've enjoyed the message.
Thanks for tuning in to Todd Talk. If you've liked what you've heard, please go ahead and subscribe and follow along so you don't miss any updates or new episodes. Thanks very much and enjoy the rest of your day.